Welcome to Monolith Mondays. My name is Megan. I'm the marketing manager here at Monolith Forensics. If you haven't been to Monolith Mondays before, what we do is every Monday at 10 a.m. Central, we have someone from our Monolith team walk through some features or particular workflow inside of Monolith just to give you kind of ideas of new features in the platform and just kind of everything that the platform is capable of. So today, one of our software engineers, Maher, is going to be walking through our analytics reports. So let me go ahead and bring him up here. And while I'm doing that, we will have time for Q&A. So if you've got a question, feel free to drop it in the chat, drop it in the Q&A box, and we'll answer any questions that you have for us at the end of the session. Good morning, Maher.
Good morning, Megan, and good morning, everybody. I'll take over from here. Thanks, Megan, for queuing me up. Welcome back, everyone, to Monolith Mondays. Thanks for taking some 20 minutes with us. I'm Maher, one of the software engineers here at Monolith Forensics. And today we're going to be covering analytics reports. It's honestly one of the most powerful and maybe one of the most underused parts of Monolith. And here's the core idea. Everything your lab already tracks in Monolith, your cases, your evidence, your storage devices, acquisitions, QA reviews, time entries, that's all data you can report on. Now, I'm sure this is not news to many of you, or hopefully not most of you, but analytics reports turn that day-to-day work into numbers you can hand to a supervisor, a prosecutor, and or a budget committee. So caseload summaries, evidence intake volumes, examiner hours, lab throughput. The best part of it all, the reports are saved and totally reusable. So you set it up once and it stays current every time you open it. So also, even though we've covered analytics reports, we are excited to share that we've also very recently shipped a round of improvements to the report filters. So the defaults are smarter. There's a select all option that actually stays up to date on its own that we'll cover here in a moment. And there are new options for finding records with missing data. I'll point each of these out as we go. Here's the plan for today. So first, we're going to do a quick tour of the reports page. Then we're going to build a common report type, a case report together from scratch. I'll walk through all the filters and their improvements along the way. Then we'll read the results, and then finally finish with a very quick tour of the other report types in case you haven't messed with those. We'll save a few minutes as usual at the end for your questions. So please drop them in the chat as we go along. All right, and let's jump in. So firstly here, I'm going to set up the screen share. Set this up here. Okay, and we're set. So right now I'm just looking at the cases page and I'm going to take us straight to where the fun is today, the reports page. This is the Monolith reports page. So this is your home base for every report you or your team has built. Um, each report is going to show its name, the category, who created it, and when. We only have a couple here for this particular case, but no worries. I'm going to create one or several. And just like any of our tables, everything here is searchable. So I can search on just one word that's in the report name, or I can search on a word that covers a lot of different things. Um, but what we really want to do today is actually build a case report. So first, let's click New Report. We're going to build one from scratch. Monolith Monday report. And we're going to select cases. So there are report categories for all these different things. So evidence storage, QA entries, acquisitions, time entries, and even forensic partner reporting for or FPR. So I am starting with cases today, but when you play with this on your own, feel free to try other report types and see how the filters differ. With what time we have left in the end, I will do my best to cover those other report types. Uh, Once you select a report category, if you notice, the form is going to load a set of filters that are built specifically for the case data. So let's go top to bottom. The time interval is one you're going to see on just about every report type. So this is the date window for your report. Now, if you notice, for those who are used to creating reports, our default is set to all time. And it's also a real selection that's sitting right at the top of the list. So it's not just an empty field. This field will no longer show blank. Um, and below it, you're going to get the quick presets today, yesterday, this week, last week, and so on. But of course, you still have your custom option. And I'll go ahead and select the custom option because we also will here get the time dimension field. So the time dimension field answers the question, which date should this time window apply to? For cases, you can measure by when the case was opened, so the open date, when it was closed, the close date, or the last activity date, whenever somebody last actually had some activity in the case. So the date range is the same, but there are three very different questions. How many cases came in last month, for example? How many cases were closed last month? How many cases were even touched last month? I want intake numbers in this case. So for these purposes, I'll select case open date. And so I don't use the custom date picker at this moment. I'm just going to select last month. Now for the optional filters. And this is where we have heard some feedback from our users, and there are some recent improvements to cover here, very recent improvements, as a matter of fact. The first thing to know about these improvements is that every filter now defaults to all. So you'll notice it's clear that there's nothing selected, but they do say all organizations, all case leads, all case statuses. And the other key difference is now you can still select all, but here, excuse me, if you select all organizations today and a new organization gets added to Monolith next month, this report's going to automatically include it. So select all here is intentionally selecting all. But when I create the report with this, I can go back in and edit and see that I still have all options selected. Functionally, though, as you can see, this is still functionally the same as having all selected or not selecting anything at all. Why might you want to still select all, even though the default is all? Well, you may want a quick way to see all the different filters, or even just chip away and remove one or a few at a time. So I'll do that here, save report, and now you can see that this is updated to show all except the ones that I don't want to show. Um, so each filter, going back to the edit here, each filter is a checklist. I can pick one organization, or I can pick a handful, or I can just use select all at the top. But the key is select all now means exactly what it says, everything permanently. Now, another new option we're excited to show that help hopefully make these filters for select all to really include all. You'll notice there's now a new option at the top, and that's the case both in this filter as well as case lead, case status does not have it, and there's a reason for that, and case types. So in all of these fields, we have a no organization in parentheses. This means that an organization could have been created or there's a field here that doesn't apply to any organization because an organization wasn't assigned. Similarly, you could have a case lead that wasn't actually assigned to a case, and so this field wouldn't be populated. But these are selectable filters now. They're selectable, and you can report on just the things that see. We can see there's one case here that's covered that has fields where nobody was selected in these. This can be very useful, not just to create a true picture of all when you select all, but also in quickly identifying cases where you might have to do some cleanup. So you might have some entities that don't have the respective organization, case lead, et cetera, assigned. And this, by doing this, even before you export to Excel, you'll be able to quickly see, hey, we forgot to assign a case lead to this, or it's just it didn't save for whatever reason, and you can go and clean that up before you actually generate the report as a deliverable. So in the real world, some records genuinely just don't have anything assigned in a field. So a case that never got an organization set, for example, it could be a valid case, but at least this way you can quickly see what those are and decide for yourself if they're intentionally unassigned or if they should be assigned. Uh, so you can include them alongside everything else now, or you can build a report of only the unassigned records. So next up, the case status I mentioned does not have a no case status option, and that's because this is actually a required field, or it has only a set that you must pick from, and it has a default within that set. So you're never unassigned in case status. So that's really it. We have the name, the category, the time window, all these different filters. The report will get saved. So I'm going to select all and just kind of do a smattering of options here. And once again, select all here is the same as leaving this blank, with the exception that if I intentionally select it all, when I save and reopen, I'll still see all options selected. And here I'll just leave that blank. So let's read the results real quick. So here's the report detail page. Every report type is going to use this same layout. And once you've learned it here, you know them all. In the top left, you have the basics, your ID, the name, the category, who created it. But the report parameters panel, this is your at a glance answer to the question, what am I actually looking at? The panel now, as you notice, is always going to list every parameter of the report. And you can see that the default now is to show all. So no longer are you going to see the report, and this is part of the recent improvement, no longer are you going to see the report parameters totally blank. You're now going to see them default to show all time, which will be consistent with what you have selected in the filters. When you do have a subset of everything selected, as you notice here, case lead, we set mat2. And that's the only one we have selected. So that's the only option we're going to show. If I select more, there we have more. So anything else that you didn't filter is explicitly going to say all. Unassigned selections will show up as, we didn't have one selected that way, but I'm going to do that here. No organization. So this will at least show you this is only showing cases that have no organization set. And then finally, you have your metrics and your case composition, and that's going to be your visual breakdown of your report. So you can flip between the charts and a plain text summary, whichever works better for you. As in case you didn't know about this, sometimes this can be helpful to see the actual percentages, but even in the charts, you can see the percentages labeled there. Finally, once you have your reporting the way you want to, you might say, well, now how do I get this report out? And that's where you can just click Save Report. And there you have a generated Excel, which you can now download. So one of the details I love, the Excel report, which I won't open at this moment, but it includes a summary of every report parameter. So the spreadsheet documents its own filters. 6 months from now, nobody's going to have to guess how that file was generated. So that's it for case reports. And I'm very quickly just going to show the other report types and then open it up for questions. So we have the ability to create evidence. So we can report on evidence items, storage items, QA entries, acquisitions, and time entries. And without creating a report, I'm just going to go through the differences in the filters here. And you'll notice the time interval is consistent through all of these because obviously the report needs to have some sort of time boundaries. But for evidence types, for evidence reports, you have evidence types. And again, these can be unassigned. Even providers can be unassigned. You have case lead, case types that are similar, and status, once again, is always going to be equal to one of these values that you have defined. Storage items will also include filters on no storage type, no storage sizes, brands, and models. Again, these aren't required to fill out when you create a storage item or even an evidence item. Therefore, we need to cover the option with a filter for those unassigned items. So the same pattern applies to the other report types. Here you have another one that is defaults to all and is either active, deleted, or it could be all. Same here with time entries. You have invoiced. This is one that defaults to all, but you can select yes or no. And really, that's it. So once again, you can create these reports with certain parameters. The filters and the swath of improvements we made around the filters now make more sense and will always show up in the report parameters. It's clear when you've intentionally selected all versus when you've just left the field blank. And all of these filter fields now have defaults to all, as well as new filter options for unassigned items. Finally, to recap, you can go in and edit those whenever you like and save your updated options, even changing the time dimensions that you're reporting on. Well, in this case, we didn't have any here, last activity date, and there we go. Well, that's all for our feature improvements on the analytics reports, as well as a general overview of reports for those of you that weren't familiar. Um, I encourage you all to play around with this and try generating some reports yourselves. Uh, and thank you all for joining. We will be happy to answer your questions here for a few minutes, but if you have any questions that come up after this, please direct them our way and we'll be happy to help with whatever use cases you need.
Great, cool. Thank you, Maher. Does anybody have any questions? If you've got questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat or the Q&A panel. Or if you're feeling really brave and want to raise your hand and ask over a microphone, we can do that too. All right. Looks like we do not have any questions, but as Maher said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to just reach out to us. We're always happy to help with whatever you need. So that's all we've got for you today for Monolith Monday. Maher, thank you again for walking us through this. Thank you everybody for taking your time to take a look at this feature inside of Monolith with us, and we hope to see you next week at the next one. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
Thank you all. Take care.